Historical Society.
I'm Jerry Kroll of the Pacifica Historical Society.
Our Horace Hinge Show here from the Pacifica Historical Society and the host of the show, Footprints of Pacifica.
Hi there. I'm Erica Rigling from the Pacifica Historical Society
and host of tonight's show, Footprints of Pacifica,
where each week we explore the lure and the lore
of lovely Pacifica, its character,
and its characters. We have a video, and let's roll the tape now.
In 1905, before you could drive south on the old coast road, a company was formed and a railroad was born, going where none dared to go. From Golden Gate south on a hair-raising route, across the Devil's Hillside, was a breathtaking, knee-shaking, cliff-hanging hell of a ride. All aboard the ocean shore, chugging down that old coastline, like the way that she did when your granddad was a kid on the ocean shore, 1409.
We want to replicate it back into its original condition. It goes back to the registry of 6 cars that were purchased brand new for the Ocean Shore Railroad Company back in 1905. And this is the last of a set of those series of 5 cars. So it's a very unique car. None of the, as I know, none of the cars from the Ocean Shore Railroad have ever been restored.
Railroad's the foundation of this town. This old ghost car here is a big part of our history.
Before we're done, we hope to fill in all the blanks in the history of the car and present it all as part of the museum display when it's finished.
This is the Little Brown Church, and this is the entrance to what has been for the past 18 years the Pacifica Police Department. And this is the area that we now want to convert for public use, restoring it to a chapel, minus the pews that would be found in the traditional church. And we'd like to make it useful for community meetings, for exhibits, for lectures, for weddings, receptions, etc. 3 classrooms went in here at the rear of the church, and it's our hope that we can restore these classrooms to become a small museum for the coastside development period from about 1905 on up to the 40s or 50s, and then an additional meeting space for the public, and finally a place for storage and processing of our city's historic documents. So those are the plans that we have for Little Brown Church if we can get on with the development.
Good morning. Welcome to our home. I'm Henry Harrison McCloskey. I was the original owner and, of course, the builder of the castle.
I'm Emily McCloskey, and this castle was built for me by my dear sainted husband, Henry Harrison McCloskey.
These rocks that you see, there are 3 steel rods. When my grandfather was burned out of the earthquake, he determined to build something that would never fall down. This castle will be here long after the City Hall in San Francisco has passed into Dutch.
I am Dottie Fine, the Madame of Chateau Lafayette, the little roadhouse of Pacifica. From 1922 to 1924, we had a lot of wonderful parties here. And a lot of bootleg booze, because it was year of Prohibition.
I'm Fanny McGuire. I was here in 1923, and when this was a very lively roadhouse and a restaurant. But the roadhouse was really very popular. And you know, the local police, they didn't bother us at all. But the feds, we had to watch out for them.
In their official statement to the police, they said that they were here because they were unwilling to become mothers. Well, the police took the house apart. They found a surgery downstairs and they claimed I was performing illegal abortions. They found me guilty and sentenced me to 2 to 5 in San Quentin.
The Coast Guards moved in. They just came in and just took over my place. I mean, they destroyed the floor, the woodwork, just trampling everything. Down in the dungeon and everything. The castle was being run down and run down and run down after 4 years. Finally, we sold it to Sam Massa. And he took over and he made it into this elaborate castle that you see today.
This week our guest is Jim Cohen, who is the grandson of Math Anderson, who built Anderson's store in 1906. He's going to share with us stories, memorabilia, and photos of the history of Anderson's. Jim, can you tell us what it was about the Salado Beach area that caused your grandfather to settle here and become one of the first Salado Beach pioneers?
Not too sure what his thoughts were. He came out from New York to help build after the '06 earthquake and had a couple days off. Came down to the coast and never went back to the job in San Francisco. Just built this and made it Salado Beach Mercantile and started the store. He knew the railroad was coming, so. Shell Park area, he built the hotel that was on Palmetto. He built County Road Market. He built Little Brown Church. He did all the woodwork for the castle.
Well, we call it that as a hot dog stand. It was just really nothing. There were no people down there. My father used to, even when he rebuilt the third restaurant there, so to speak, he'd go down fishing, and people would come down that way. It's like going to Santa Cruz today, and they'd call him and say, "Hey, Charlie, come up, we want a hamburger." So he'd leave the pole in the stand there and come up and cook them a hamburger, and maybe give them a little moonshine and a beer, whatever, and off they'd go.
We're standing at the north end of Beach Boulevard, the site of the former Skullcracker Saloon, so famous for continuing to operate no matter how stormy the weather became. It was torn down about 3 years ago after its former owner, Maida Johnston, had left for an assisted living facility. And I guess it was in pretty bad shape. So it withstood storms, but not the ravages of time.
During the war, one of the most serious things was we had to drive around with our parking lights on. And if you want something exciting, you drive down the Old Coast Highway with your parking lights on a foggy night, and you just sort of feel your way along, but it didn't seem to bother us. And we did it the full time of the war, right shortly after the war started. We started doing that. And we also had to keep, because we lived on a hill and we were close to the ocean, we had to keep our shades pulled at night. We couldn't have our shades letting too much light out because there was this dim out.
Then Sharp Park Temporary Detention Station was open from 42 to 46. There was 191 Japanese, a number of what they called Peruvian Japanese. There was Chinese, Italians that had been arrested, Germans that had been arrested, and they were all detained here at various times.
We were the Nike, but our range was probably 700 to 1,000 miles. but it was mostly close in, and they did pack a nuclear warhead. There was a nuclear warhead on them, but their accuracy wasn't the greatest. But they worked. That was our defense.
The Rockaway Beach Progressive Club had dances. I think once a month they had a dance, and Mr. Alonzo was an old-time resident, and he played the drums, and I think there was an accordion and a really swinging band.
There were a lot of dances, Horace, back in those days. They had dances at Happy Hollow Ranch, which is in what we now call Manor Village. And that whole end of that valley was a ranch. And they had hay rides, they had horses you could rent.
They had dances there.
We used to have dances where, well, the highway's taken it in. It was just west of Anderson's store. They used to put stores in between other stores, just put a little front and a back on it, and they put this one in. And they had movies. I don't know who, I mean, one of the realtors or somebody like that, they'd have these movies. So we'd go there Saturday night to the movie, and then there'd be dancing afterwards. We did a lot of dancing down there.
We walk together, hand in hand.
So no matter who came, who of the family showed up, because we never really knew who was coming, there was plenty of room, you know. It was great. So the simple times, we had no TV, no radio, nothing. You were down there and you had to enjoy nature. And you know, what's wrong with that? It's wonderful.
A lot of the people that were involved in surfing, involved with the ocean, it meant so much to them. It was kind of maybe their religion. They were there as much as they could be there, and if they could live by the ocean, they lived by the ocean. If they could find a way of making enough money to survive so they could surf more, that's what they did. So it brought in their whole lives. They did everything so that they could have more time at the ocean.
Our guest today is Andrew Leone. He is an artist, a teacher, an activist, and well known in the community of Pacifica.
Sometimes we have these special cultural exhibits that are, I think, really important to, expand our awareness of all these different communities that we interact with. The MASH show is one we did here at the center. 2 years we, collaborated with the California Hospice Association, who helped people who are dying. They were needed to raise money, and so artists would paint these masks and donate them, and to sort of I thought, well, what can we do to really let people know we're doing that, and designed this 8-foot-high plaster and wire mask that we put on the top of the building. I mean, this sort of towering mask, and then above it we used palm fronds for the hair, the headdress. So it was a huge thing people saw when, I love that idea if you can, do something that catches people's attention.
Andrew Leone was there and in handling most of the reorganization of that for the Art Center. And so I discovered the big multi-purpose room. And it was in very poor repair with holes in the wall and crumbling tiles on the floor. But for some reason I thought it would make a nice performance space, so I got to work on that, and lo and behold, many years, it's been about 12 years now, we've been there, and it's a very nice space, and all these many years we've been renovating and improving it.
hey, oh, yeah, yeah, hey, oh, yeah, yeah, hey, oh, yeah.
In terms of food, they virtually lived in a Garden of Eden. I can find food without trapping. I can find food all year long growing on the land. And some of it on the headlands is even pre-salted from the spindrift. So it's a wonderful place to live. And every era of California history has had population here. This is how good Pacifica is. We're all very fortunate to live here. And the Ohlone people knew that also.
George, I'd like to start by discovering just how you came to Pacifica in the first place.
Well, I immigrated to New York in '57, and actually I'm a card-carrying wetback. I jumped ship in New York, having taken a single ticket to Bermuda. And I got a job there, sorted out my various affairs, lived in the village. And the west coast of the Americas is the only part of the world I'd never been to. So after I acquired a small grub stake, I set off west via Nevada and acquired a wife and wound up in San Francisco.
There was this Scottish chap with lots of sense, which he rounded off into the name of Dollar. Well, by 1902, he had the Dollar Steamship Company with 10 steam lumber schooners because he had a good lumber business up and down the coast. And he then gradually went into shipping. Then with Ralph Heinz, there was further development in sending and receiving. So by 1929, Dollar Radio had transmitters and offices in here, Los Angeles, Seattle, Manila, Guam, Honolulu, Garden City, New Jersey, and Long Island. So essentially it had a worldwide radio system, which of course began right where we're sitting.
That's the fire station was on the corner of Palmetto and Santa Maria. Those are the three. There was 4 people in the department when I was hired. This one here was the newest engine. That was really a good engine at the time. And this one was an old airport rescue truck, and it didn't have much in the way of brakes. And I remember one time coming off the Crespi Cut, and it just, we weren't sure we were going to stop in Rockaway. And this was our rescue truck that we used to do the cliff rescues with.
So they built this golf course in the late 1920s. They hired the consultant Alistair McKenzie, who was a well-known architect at that time, to come down and design this course. Then in April 16th, 1932, it opened up to what it is now as the Sharp Park Golf Course. About 400 people were here that day to play the golf course for a tune about 70 cents a round, and on the weekends you could play for $1 a round.
My fondest memories were Mrs. Fay and my dad walking on the beach. Here is what the house looked like. She was the most marvelous woman. She would go down to the beach with me. She'd say, "Oh, Emma, don't fuss over her. If it can't be seen by a man on a galloping horse, don't worry about her." And she'd take me down to the beach, whip off her Lyle stockings and her high-heeled shoes, and completely, dressed to go downtown, right? She would take me and wade through the water, and we would find mussel shells, and she would talk to me about the ocean, and I just thought, I wanted to be a beachcomber when I grew up.
Well, Maury Point is the ocean end of that ridge that comes down dividing Valimar and Sharp Park sections of Pacifica. It's right at the south end of Sharp Park Beach, kind of nestled in, maybe it was protected from the weather in a way that attracted the Maury family when they first came over from Italy in about 1880. Stefano and Marie Maury took up farming out there. They bought a 19-acre parcel, and they also grazed goats and cattle on the surrounding hillsides. Their main crops were those that do well along the coast, the famous artichokes of this area, Brussels sprouts, cabbages, and vegetables of that sort. Marie became locally known as a famous cook. Her artichoke fritters were renowned, and she was also credited with introducing Jack cheese to this part of the coast. And what do you know, here
Wow.
We even today have jack cheese that we sell here in Pacifica partially to commemorate the Maury's and their stay.
This is one of our posters that we went and put them up all over town.
Yep.
Save Maury Point while there is still time.
It just caught on, like it started to snowball, and every day I would go over to the post office. We had a little mailbox at the post office, and I would be getting these, letters with checks. It was like Christmas every day, and so I think it was just phenomenal how fast people responded. The community stepped up, and just an outpouring of support like nothing I personally have ever seen. Anyway, it was pretty phenomenal, and it happened, and we were all just ecstatic.
You didn't have a supporter in your family. At least Paul was on the absolute opposite side of the issue. How did that come about?
He was, but because he was for the bypass. Well, my children say it was really funny driving around town with both bumper strips, bypass and tunnel on the car.
Was that to save the family? You had double stickers?
I don't know.
Did it bother you that you were advocating for the opposition?
Oh, no, as long as mine was there, I was willing to go along with the other idea, because my idea was more intelligent.
And you will live to see that idea come to fruition.
Yes.
They're working on it.
Tom was a great advocate for Pacifica, and all you have to do is look around to open space in this great community to know that he had his hand in making sure that Sweeney Ridge got set aside as part of the GGNRA, that Maury Point was set aside, and obviously to make sure that transportation between Pacifica and Half Moon Bay could be done in the most environmentally sensitive way by helping to get the funds to build the tunnel, which hopefully will be named in his honor in a short period of time.
I always found that the political vitality of this town matches its natural beauty. I well remember my friend, your first mayor, Gene Fassler, who ushered in an era of feminine participation in political life.
Oh, I think the fond memories of Pacifica is being coming home from meetings, trying to sort out the problems that we were facing, and when I'd walk the beach in that nice fresh air and listen to the ocean, all of the problems seemed to disappear, and I loved it, and I miss it very much.
No matter where you are in the world, the ocean is coming towards you.
And I think it's such a part of you, Mary.
Well, yeah, I just love the ocean.
And remember, lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and, departing, leave behind us footprints in the sands of time.
But you picked out all the good spots. Yeah. You did a great job. Now, the next thing on the program